Have you ever wondered why we keep returning to the very things we know will hurt us? Why do we crave the very habits that slowly destroy us? And why silence feels so unbearable? As if it's whispering truths we've spent years trying not to hear? Maybe addiction isn't just weakness or lack of control. Maybe it's the soul's way of calling for attention. A quiet cry from the parts of us we've buried under distraction and routine. Think about it. Addiction rarely announces itself. It doesn't arrive with a warning. It hides behind comfort, wearing the mask of pleasure, relief, or escape. It lives in the cigarette you light without thinking, in the drink you pour automatically, in the endless scrolling that numbs your thoughts. Every impulse has a root, and behind every desire hides a pain we've refused to face. That pain doesn't want to be silenced. It wants to be seen, heard, understood. That's what this reflection is about. Not to judge you or hold up a mirror to your habits, but to reveal what lies behind your gaze, what your silence has been trying to say. If you stay until the end, you may begin to see why stopping has always felt impossible, and why after today, you might not have to keep fighting it the same way again. This isn't about control or discipline. It's about awareness, about turning toward what you've been running from, what some call the shadow. Reaching this point already means something, because only those who dare to listen begin to understand what their addictions are trying to communicate. Addiction doesn't threaten you, it seduces you. It whispers softly, "You've suffered enough today. Take a break, just for a moment." And like someone reaching for warmth on a cold night, you surrender. You smoke, you drink, you scroll, and for a brief moment, the world feels a little easier to bear. Behind all that, something deeper is happening. Addiction isn't just a habit or a lack of discipline. It's a hidden message from within trying to express what words never could. If you were truly at peace and complete, what would there be to escape from? Addiction isn't the problem. It's the symptom, the reflection of an emptiness you haven't yet faced. The most unsettling part isn't the craving itself, but the silence that comes before it. The stillness that reveals what you've tried to avoid. Real freedom doesn't come from control. It comes from understanding what drives you and seeing what inside you keeps pulling the strings. Yet most people still see addiction as weakness or failure. But how can you control what you don't understand? How can you fight something that wears your own face? Addiction is a mask. On the outside it looks like smoking, drinking, scrolling, or eating. But inside it's what consumes you. Unhealed pain, unmet needs, and the endless attempt to escape yourself. The more you run from it, the stronger it becomes. And the more you fight it by force, the more it feeds on your resistance. What you avoid only grows stronger. We think we're fighting addiction, but most of the time we're only deepening our blindness to it. Addiction moves with precision, almost like a ritual. It has a moment, a scent, a familiar place, and a script that repeats itself over and over. It's not really about pleasure. It's about escape, about the brief relief of forgetting who you are. For a few moments, that forgetting feels like freedom, but soon it becomes a cage. That's when shame creeps in, when you start mistaking exhaustion for weakness. The real battle isn't against your lack of will. It's against your pain, and pain can't be defeated by force. Only faced with awareness. Before you try to stop, you have to understand. Before you resist, you have to listen. When you do, you begin to see that addiction isn't an enemy. It's a messenger carrying something you've ignored. There is something raw and sacred in that pain. Something ancient that keeps calling you back to yourself. It's not about the cigarette, the drink, the phone, or the sugar. The real question is what you're trying to quiet each time you reach for them. Addiction isn't senseless. It follows the logic of your wounds. It's the echo of needs unmet, of loneliness unspoken, of grief you never faced. It might come from a childhood starved of affection, a grown self always chasing worth, a trauma buried too deep, or a silence that became home. When the craving appears, ask yourself where it really comes from. What emptiness it's trying to fill. What part of you is calling for attention? Then you may see that addiction was never about pleasure. It was about survival. There is a strange and quiet beauty in the darkness we try to avoid. It is not there to destroy you, but to be understood. What you call addiction is often an urgent attempt to make. You face what you have been running from. Every time you resist it, the darkness grows louder because it wants to be seen. The most unsettling truth is that your compulsion is not your enemy. It is a signal from within, a voice saying, "Look at me, I am still here." That is why many attempts to quit fail, because you try to kill what only needs to be heard. Every addiction is a distorted form of love, a search for comfort, connection, or the feeling of being held, even for a fleeting moment. When you begin to listen instead of fight, something changes. A small space opens inside you, and in that space, healing begins. It stops being about rejecting the addiction and becomes about understanding what it is, trying to give back the parts of yourself you lost somewhere along the way. It does not shout. It arrives softly, familiar, like a shadow that knows its way in. It waits for the moment you are tired and whispers, "Just once more." You give in, not because you are weak, but because you are weary. Addiction is not just repetition. It is an unconscious attempt to restore emotional balance. It is a ritual of survival, one that promises peace, but leaves emptiness in its wake. Think about how many times you've lived the same story. Stress builds, loneliness tightens, silence grows heavy, and you reach for the same comfort, the same habit, the same escape. It becomes a ritual, almost sacred in its repetition, as if each act were a quiet offering to forget. Yet hidden within this ritual lies wisdom. Every compulsive act carries a message, an emotion asking to be understood. Most people silence the behavior without decoding the meaning beneath it. It's like breaking the alarm because the sound bothers you, unaware that it was warning you of a fire within. The real invitation is to observe the ritual, to enter it consciously, to watch the repetition as if you were the witness instead of the actor. In that small space between urge and action, freedom begins to appear. You don't need to destroy the ritual. You can transform it. If you find yourself reaching for something to numb the ache, pause and ask yourself what hurts. What part of you feels unseen? What emotion you are trying not to feel? No one is truly addicted to pleasure. We are addicted to escaping pain, and awakening begins the moment you realize that addiction is not just an escape but a map, guiding you toward the parts of yourself you abandoned long ago. The path to wholeness always passes through the darkness. Not to fight it, but to understand it. Imagine transforming the urge into a doorway. When it comes, breathe deeply and say, I see you. I know what you are asking for, but this time I choose to respond differently. And if you feel the pull of distraction before sleep, turn off the noise and ask yourself one simple question. What did I lose today? Small conscious actions repeated over time begin to dissolve old habits and create new patterns that bring you back to yourself instead of breaking you apart. It's not easy, but it's possible. Each time you respond differently, even for a brief moment, you remind yourself that you are no longer trapped. It isn't about destroying desire, but understanding how to work with it. Addiction then stops being an enemy and becomes a doorway. At some point, desire stops feeling like a threat and starts acting like a mirror, showing you not your weakness, but your strength. Every painful impulse carries energy, a living current that can be transformed if you have the patience to face it. Desire burns in the chest, tightens the throat, races through the mind, and most people try to fight or flee from it. The secret is to stay. The illusion says you only have two options, to give in or to resist. But there's another path, to transform it. When the craving comes, it carries raw energy that can be redirected. The way to freedom isn't avoidance, but awareness. When the urge appears, stop and breathe. Ask yourself where it comes from. What part of you wants to be seen? What pain is asking to be felt? In that moment, the impulse turns into information. Desire becomes a message, and awareness replaces automatic reaction. That awareness is real power. But remember, it's not about replacing one escape with another. It's about turning an unconscious habit into a meaningful act of connection with yourself, transforming what once controlled you into something that heals you. If desire appears before sleep, it may be loneliness trying to speak. Instead of escaping it, write a letter to yourself. If the urge comes when stress builds, maybe your body is simply asking for rest. Instead of pushing harder, lie down, close your eyes and breathe deeply for a few moments. It is simple, but powerful. Real transformation is not dramatic. It is intimate. It is about meeting your own pain without fear. Slowly you will notice that the voice inside that once said, "I cannot take it anymore," begins to whisper, "I can stay." You stop reacting and begin creating. You move from feeling trapped to becoming the one who transforms from being the victim to the author of your own healing. If you have made it this far, it means you have truly listened, faced the silence, and walked through places within yourself that most people never dare to enter. That is not small. That is extraordinary. There are no shortcuts in this process, only depth. And you chose to go deep. Maybe for the first time you faced your desire without judgment and saw that what you called addiction was never the real enemy, but a forgotten part of you asking to be seen. True strength does not come from suppression, but from understanding. It is not about conquering your impulses, but transforming your relationship with them. From now on, every urge is an invitation, every discomfort a signpost, every conscious choice a step toward freedom. The question is no longer how do I stop this, but what part of me is asking for care right now? That single question asked with honesty is more powerful than any rule or restriction. And if this message resonated with you, share in the comments what your struggle has been trying to tell you. Maybe writing it is your first act of awareness. Take a moment to like and subscribe, not out of habit, but as a way of staying connected to reflections that help you understand yourself more deeply.